So I want to kind of start a new show series on the channel, and this is pretty much just going to be just for an episode, me talking about pretty much what's going on within the day in sports, what I think the biggest conversations are that need to be had within the day. I'm still going to do the other stuff. I don't know how consistently I'll do this. It really depends on my schedule, which unfortunately for me isn't always as open, but I just wanted to kind of get into kind of a background of what this is. But first thing that I wanted to talk about right off the bat here would be that Lakers comeback last night. And I remember checking it. I didn't watch the first half of the game, but at one point they were down like 22-6. They were down 19 points in the fourth quarter. They had one of their lowest scoring first halves in the season, and somehow they were able to rally and come back behind what was close to 30 points from AR, D'Angelo Russell, and, of course, Anthony Davis, who made ridiculous plays both on the offensive end and defensive end. Couldn't really find a shot at first, then found a way to figure it out towards the stretch of it. And that was a win against that's 2 wins now against Milwaukee where they haven't had LeBron James. So you're really looking at this team, and I think you're seeing a lot of just upside within what they're able to do. And you're looking it over. Right now, they're sitting at 9th in the West. And that was a win they needed. That was a win they absolutely needed. And they've showed that they can pretty much beat anybody except for Denver. Denver, a team that they can play close, but they can't quite beat. They've lost like 8 in a row to Denver. And you're looking at the way it shakes up. Going down the list of those teams, I wouldn't feel more confident in any other two getting out of the West than the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, the issues that you have on other teams right now, where you have the Timberwolves, what's going on with the health of Karl Anthony Towns? Is Anthony Edwards old enough to lead a team to the finals? I don't think so. The Oklahoma City Thunder, that's another young team. I think they're like a year or 2 away. So you're looking at that all. The Clippers, if they're all healthy, for sure, they can make it. But James Harden's known to choke in the playoffs. Paul George has had his problems in the postseason. Kawhi at times is never healthy when it comes down to crunch time, so we'll see what happens with that. That's a team that could. But then you're just looking down the list and you're like, there's nobody else that could go to the finals, in my opinion. Who would you have more trust over than the Lakers? And it's going to be, can they beat Denver? And you're looking at the way that things might shake up. I think they really need to get to that 8th spot. So within the play-in game, you can find a way to win only one game, be the 7 seed, get away from playing Denver, who Denver sitting right now number 1, probably going to finish there. I don't like them playing Denver in the first round. I know it's been, Nick Wright was saying that he would prefer that the Lakers play the Nuggets in the first round, but I think that they need to build up to that, and I would like them on the other side. Who knows what can happen? The NBA, maybe somebody else can beat them, which I don't know if they can. I would say right now it would be for sure, in my opinion, Denver going. But you're looking at this Lakers team, and they can beat anybody. They're just showing through. Like Milwaukee is the 2nd best team in the East. The Lakers' trajectory right now is at a higher level than it was that of last year. It just simply is. They're 40-32. There's a much better pace than they were at last year. And last year they finished at the 7, and this year they're at the 9. They would be like in the 4th or 5th spot if this was last year. So I think it's a good roster. I'm glad they didn't make that trade. I think that it was a ridiculous comeback, but it's nothing we haven't seen them do before. They've done this against the Clippers. They've done a similar comeback against the Bucks. That was a tough game. I don't know how they won it. They've done it in playoff moments. Like they're a comeback team. I'm starting to get more worried about more down the stretch. Can they get to the 8? Which I think they can. If you're looking at who's sitting at 8, you have Phoenix. And Phoenix has the hardest remaining schedule left in the NBA through the last 10 games. Lakers have one of the more easy ones. They have Memphis tonight. Then I want to say there's like a game against Washington somewhere. So they're going to have a better path. If they just win the games they're supposed to win, they should get to 8. But it really, overall, an impressive win from a team that I think is starting to show you what they can do. And AD, I don't know what he's done. It's been healthy. It's been healthy for a year and a half, which is really surprising. This is a guy that couldn't stay healthy at all for like a 2-year period. People were saying he was done. I debatably thought he was done. And he has found a way to somehow stay healthy for about a year and a half. And what I think he did is he probably just started taking it more seriously. He's a teammate with LeBron, one of the best body preservers in maybe the history of human life at this point. And AD maybe just replicated some of it. And LeBron has never had... He had the back problem in 2019, but I think he could have played through that. He had the foot problem last year that he did play through when he needed to. But LeBron's never had like that catastrophic injury. Like there was a play earlier this season where it looked like I thought he tweaked some in his knee, but he landed in a way that you could tell he's looked over a million times. And I think he has relayed some of this information. I think it took a little bit to Anthony Davis. And he's starting to understand how to land properly, how to initiate contact without injury, and how to not overexert the body. And he's starting to do better at it. They've both been pretty much healthy. LeBron, this is what LeBron usually does. He sits out some of these games like a load management type of thing. It says day to day all the time. It's really just fatigue. But AD is usually out for like this many weeks, that many weeks. That hasn't happened this year. And I think he's taken more initiative. I think he's the best defensive player in the league. I mean, I think it would be short-sighted not to say that. And when his offensive game is playing well, there's no reason he's not a top 5 player in the NBA. Like when he plays a game like he did last night, there's not a lot of players you see doing that. Like, that was impressive all the way around. Austin Reeves is really just becoming one of those. I think he might have worked in other situations. He's a good player. I think the confidence and the teamwork that the teammateship that he has with LeBron probably uplifted him past what he would have succeeded somewhere else. But I think he's got all the intangibles of what a good player does. The 3-point shot he's developed that well. This Lakers team is one that's starting to look scarier and scarier as it goes on, in my opinion. They're starting to look a lot scarier. And then I did want to kind of move past the NBA for a second, and I did want to talk about something that I saw and have been seeing within the terms of the mock draft and these insiders' opinions and whatnot, and it's the J.J. McCarthy talk. There was a report yesterday that it's believed that he could possibly go number 2 in the draft. And you're looking at disaster. I don't know where you could possibly even get that from. If you watched, I watched him play live. I'm not talking about his highlights, which I have seen, obviously, But the highlights are the things that people see, not a lot of people. I watched a decent amount of Michigan football because I'm a fan. The team Ohio State that I cover in the Big Ten, and you have Michigan in the Big Ten as well. So I looked at a lot of Michigan football. Not once did I look at J.J. McCarthy and be like, wow, that's a future pro. This is why Michigan's so scary. No, Michigan had an unbelievable O-line, a great defense, and a really solid tandem of running backs. And J.J. McCarthy, who a guy that I think helped them out more on the threat of him running than his pass. If you look at the game against Ohio State, he maybe made one good throw in that game. There's just not a lot there. He's not the reason that Michigan won the national championship. That needs to be put down. He's not. He's not the reason that they won it all. They won behind the culture of the coach. They won behind the impressive O-line, the defense, and the run game. He managed that, which is tough to do. He was like the Purdy of Michigan, in my opinion. He didn't do anything outstanding against Ohio State. The one striking game that I think really goes into this reason, the Penn State game, he threw the ball like 8 times. They had little trust in him because you had the interim head coach in that game. That was the first big team that they played. They had no trust in him in that game. Think about it. They had absolutely zero trust in J.J. McCarthy in that game. What does that mean? And it tells me that I just don't see him working in at least year 1 or 2 of the NFL. If he goes to the right system, he sits, he learns behind somebody, sure, he's got a shot. I think that if he went to Minnesota, look at what they have in Minnesota. You have an offensive-minded head coach. You have probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. You have a really good tight end. You have a good number 2 receiver. If he went to Minnesota, then it would work. Is this the moral of what I'm saying? He would probably sit behind Sam Darnold that year. That's the only scenario that works. It doesn't work in Denver, which maybe no. In my opinion, it doesn't work in Denver. It certainly wouldn't work in Washington. It would not work in. There's no way that it would work in Washington, in my opinion, unless no, it wouldn't work in Washington. So you're getting to a point where this is unbelievable overvaluement. It seems it's in the range of Trey Lance to me, like Zach Wilson, guys that you are just overvaluing. And if you notice, it happens every single year. In my opinion, there are 3 guys in this draft that could have success, maybe 4. And one of them's not J.J. McCarthy. Caleb Williams could have success. Drake May could have success later. It won't be this year. It will not be this year. He needs to sit down and develop, obviously. But he could have success anywhere with, obviously, the right intangibles. Jaden Daniels could be like, he's seeming more and more like an RG3 to me. If he could stay healthy, he could have a chance at success. And then I think Michael Penix is a quarterback that I like. I don't buy into the J.J. McCarthy stuff. And I saw him, if you look at his numbers in college, they are not the numbers of a guy that would scream out to you, this is a top 5 pick in the draft. He averaged less than 200 yards passing a game. He had 22 touchdowns in 15 games last year. 22 touchdowns in 15 games last year. It's overhyped to me. Like, rip Caleb Williams all you want, and there's a lot of things that I don't like about him. I don't think he's this generational guy, but he's had 93 touchdowns in 2 years. So I mean, if you're it's a ridiculous amount of, or in whatever I know at some point in college he has 93 touchdowns. It's a ridiculous number. And even with all the knocks that I would give him, I think we're going to look back and this QB class is going to be more on par with a 2021 than a 2020, or where you had in that draft, you had Trevor Lawrence, you had Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and there's probably only two of them that even have a shot, and Justin Fields has been traded already. So I think people are way too high on J.J. McCarthy. I think that it just scares me if you're in a really good college. If you notice, the best quarterbacks that have been in the NFL are ones that are on subpar college teams or were in subpar college situations. Like Mahomes was at Texas Tech. They might have won 6 games. Who knows? Nobody remembers that. Andrew Luck's Stanford team wasn't great his senior year. You have to even go to Richardson, a guy that was looking like he was going to work. That's probably a bad example. But he went to like a 6-7 Florida. Joe Burrow's the big outlier here with the LSU team. I get that. It can happen because obviously there's a transition of where the college game is looking a lot more like the pro game. But I mean, Matt Ryan's a guy that comes to mind too. He went to Boston College and they were pretty terrible. He is a NFL MVP later. So it varies, but the majority of the time, like Josh Allen was told at times that he wasn't going to be getting scholarship offers. He had to go to Wyoming. Look at him now. Sometimes you have to go through bad coaches, bad chaos of environments in college to be prepared for the NFL, because that's the NFL every week. So the majority of the time, you're not getting a Kyle Shanahan who is just going to make everything all right, especially if you go to a defensive culture, which would be a situation that would be Washington or would be New England. So, yeah, moral of the story here is J.J. McCarthy. I think if I were an NFL GM, I would draft him. I think he's a day 2 guy. That's just what I've thought he's been. Maybe you take a 2nd, 3rd round flyer on him. Like I said, he's going to go top 5 in this thing, unless people come to their senses. But I think it's insane overvalue for the reasons that I just listed. And then I did after the J.J. McCarthy talk want to get into, there was a big deal of rule changes in the NFL. One of them was the kickoff, and then one of them wasn't really a rule change, but it was more of a contract change where the NFL is going to play on Christmas now. And I think I'll get into the kickoff after, but if we're talking about the rule change, the Christmas Day edition, where I think they did some of this last year because Christmas happened to fall on Sunday or whatever. I thought it was entertaining. You flip back and forth. It is going to cause issues to the NBA because I think you've always had, opening day in baseball is this big day, and then you have Thanksgiving for football in the NFL is their day, and then Christmas was always NBA's thing. It was always NBA's main occasion of what they were going to be. But now you bring in the NFL, and I think for the viewer, it's amazing because not only do you get to watch at time, it was like some of those basketball games are just not that entertaining, and then pretty much all NFL games are watchable in a sense. So for the viewer, it's going to be great. But for the NBA ratings in general, what scares me is I don't know if anybody's going to watch the NBA when you have the NFL. And like this is outlying the diehard NBA guys, but I don't know who is going to sit down and watch the NFL. I mean the NBA at this point when you have NFL games on all day. So it is going to be a bit of a hit. And I think the big problem that the NBA is starting to run into, and I don't think it's in as bad of a position as like men's basketball, college men's basketball, but it does have an issue where the three probably most entertaining or likable guys in the NBA are all pretty much past their prime and about to be out. Like LeBron's 39, Steph 36, I think KD is 36. It's getting to a point where once those guys are gone, the NBA needs to look for a new face. And not a lot of people like Jokic. I think a lot of people have taken interest to Anthony Edwards, but at the same time, Anthony Edwards, it's really tough to be the best player in the NBA at his height. It would be really tough for him to do that. I don't know. Minnesota has had a good year this year. I don't think they're necessarily close to winning a title. There's teams that they would have to go through. So that concerns me for the Anthony Edwards conversation. Wemby's he's very interesting, but at the same time, he's an international. So they need a domestic guy. You have Jason Tatum, who could maybe be the hope at that point. But is he going to be able to win the title this year, or is he going to flame out? We don't really know yet. Some people are against Jason Tatum. Embiid can never stay healthy. So you're really looking at the three most beloved players. You have Giannis, but like I said, not a domestic guy. It doesn't really matter for some people. For some people, it does. And I think universally, the three most watched guys in the NBA are LeBron, KD, and Steph. Look at the numbers. A lot of people watch the Lakers. A lot of people watch the Warriors. And people tune into KD. What I will say is through my time of making this content, through what I've done, I don't think there's been a player that has drawn more interest than when I have done things about Kevin Durant. I think he's obviously there is people that don't like the ring chasing, but I think he's a really interesting player to a lot of people. Like I think a lot of people really like his game. I think but we do have to understand with KD, he has not been out of the second round of the playoffs in what I think has been 6 years. From 29 on. I'm pretty sure he's played 11 minutes. I think I saw the stat yesterday. He's played 11 minutes in past the second round of the playoffs in six years. And that was obviously he had that injury to I think he tore his Achilles heel, whatever it was. I think it was the Achilles heel in that game against the Raptors where he played for like 11 minutes and it was done. So that's tough for people that like Kevin Durant, but his career has just taken a bad turn because obviously he made what was maybe one of the most interesting choices of all time, and that was to go to Brooklyn when Brooklyn was maybe not at the best ownership point. He teamed up with Kyrie, who was erratic. And if you're looking at Kyrie, the only time Kyrie actually worked outside of a brief 10-game stretch in Boston was with LeBron. And LeBron, everybody works with LeBron. Pretty much everybody. You could say the one person that didn't work with LeBron was Russell Westbrook. But other than that, everybody has worked with LeBron. And Kevin Durant's always been more of the he's going to make the plays, the more self-centered. He's not a leader in a sense. Like if you go to the Warriors teams, Steph Curry was more the leader of those units all the way through. And you look at it, and he made some bad decisions. And then I haven't liked the Phoenix decision from the start. What is Phoenix today? Phoenix might miss the playoffs. If I had a pick right now of a team that would miss the postseason, it would be Phoenix. 100%. You have the toughest remaining schedule left. You're 2 games up on the Lakers. The Lakers are coming. Lakers, like I said early in this video, Lakers are on their way up. If I'm the Suns, I'm worried right now. I am worried. And just going back to what I was saying in general, that puts the NBA in such a difficult spot as to where, they need to shift it towards a new face of this league. And it's going to be tough. I mean, I don't know how much more ground there will be to cover on the NBA once those guys go. It's a lot of interesting players, but I don't think that there's revolutionary players quite like those guys left. Like there's been a big player in every era of basketball kind of consistently. You had in the late 80s, in the early to late 80s, you had Bird and Magic. Instantly after that, you had Michael Jordan. After that, you had Shaq. Then you had Kobe. LeBron comes into the mix. LeBron has still been in the mix, but while you've had LeBron, you simultaneously had Kevin Durant. Then you've had Curry, and LeBron is still there, obviously. Who is next? I mean, Jokic is more of a Tim Duncan to me. He's more of a Tim Duncan. That the Spurs and the Nuggets are very similar in what they've done and what they've been doing, in my opinion. So you have that dynamic. And I talked about Anthony Edwards earlier, how he would be pulverizing enough to do it. But I don't know if the success is going to be there. That's going to be tough to accomplish. So going back to what the whole thing that I was talking about was about is NFL being on Christmas is great for the consumer. It is very bad for the NBA. It will be. It will be very bad for the NBA. Because if you went to a room and you survey 50 people, you ask them, are you going to watch the NBA or the NFL on Christmas Day? At least 80% are saying that they're watching the NFL. Just the way that the things have pivoted. If you go up to your friend group and you ask them what they prefer, they're going to say the NFL. And I think the biggest thing about the NFL is that it doesn't really need to be a star-driven league. Like, there's a lot of loyalty to teams. There's a lot of, like, if the Jacksonville Jaguars went to the Super Bowl, they're still going to get viewed by, there's still going to be 50 million people watching the Super Bowl. It's not debatable. Super Bowl's still going to get a lot of views. It's the NFL. NBA, if you run into a rough team, like if the Detroit Pistons, they're terrible, but if they were really good, maybe not them, maybe like the Wizards, if they were really good, I don't know how many people are going to sit there and really watch them. I bet you the NBA Finals ratings were bad last year. Not many people cared about the Heat or the Nuggets. So it's just interesting. It's more of a star-driven thing within the associations of it. But that is an interesting point to come across, is that, and it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be really good for the consumer. It's going to be really bad for the brand of the NBA. Then I did want to finally get into the kickoff rule change. And, I was looking at it, and I think there's a few different ways to look at it. And if you're looking at it from a way of the NFL, it makes sense because they're trying to limit injury. It's been told by doing it through the XFL that limit injury, even though there was a far smaller sample size to the whole thing. But if it can limit injury, it's good for the NFL. This is something that's going to be bad for the consumer. And it's going to get a lot of pushback. It's going to get a lot of pushback because it looks weird and it's not traditional, and there's great just cinematic moments to watching the kickoff and people run down the field. It's gonna strike a nerve with a lot of fans. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if the fan, because people are going to hate it. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be bad for the NFL in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. I think they're going to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. But I don't know if it's going to be able to stay in place due to the fans. People like tradition. It's why people root for teams. I mean, tradition is something that people like to follow. People don't like to see their game be changed. And this is a spot where it's going to ruffle a lot of feathers with people. So we'll see what goes into that. And then lastly, I did want to go into, we have March Madness obviously kicks back off tomorrow, Sweet 16 games. And I do think with full confidence that I was short-sighted at first. I had Houston winning the national championship. I think, in my honest opinion at this point, that the team that I think can really pull it off would be UConn. I like that Hurley, the coach, is a really, really good coach. You have a top 10 projected NBA player on the team. It's a really solid team who has impressively, in the NCAA tournament, they've won 8 games in a row in consecutive seasons by 10 or more, which is ridiculous. You would have to go like that level of domination in something like that. I don't know if there's been a team in the NBA playoffs that has won 8 games in a row all by blowout. Maybe there is, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. That's a super impressive feat. And I don't see the only team that I think could beat these guys, it would have to be Purdue. Maybe North Carolina could run with them. Bacat, good player. But I'm thinking Purdue maybe in the championship, because you could have Edey against their big guy too, and that could cause some problems. But it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see it through this week. But I think that's going to wrap it up for the inaugural episode of this. I'm trying to make these things a little bit longer, but this will do for now. We'll see how this does. The dream someday, obviously, is to do this every day. Obviously, there's, people got things in their life. There's things that time constraints are going to be tough, but that'll do it.